feel like food has stopped being enjoyable for you and is now this point of stress in your life, or you have this love-hate relationship with it? That's exactly what just happened with somebody that I got off the phone with in a free mini session. She was telling me how she had done Weight Watchers for many years in the past, and though she lost a good amount of weight, it's now been coming back on. She said that she's become really bored with tracking and just feeling restricted and deprived and guilty often. And I knew exactly how she felt. I'd been there myself. She also shared with me that she would, eat really well Monday to Friday and then stuff her face with not exactly the most nutritious things all weekend. She called them her cheat days. She found herself making the most of them until Monday rolled around, and then it was back to being good and restricting herself. She shared that her binging habits and just lack of control around food at parties that she had never struggled with before only came from that strictness and restriction that she had experienced all week long. And it had, understandably so, become exhausting for her. And this is a really super common thing that I hear from women, and I wanted to address it here to help you guys out there who relate to these struggles. Now, there is a lot that can be going on that's fueling this, but I'm going to touch on two big pieces of the root cause puzzle that are definitely in play here. The first is something that's technically called the Last Supper effect, if you want to Google and read up on that more. I personally call it the Sunday night effect, and you'll see why. So this is something that you've likely run into before after caving and breaking some type of food rule that you had set for yourself. Like in the example with the woman I just spoke with, come Friday night, she would eat foods that she wouldn't let herself eat during the week when she was trying to be so good and eat so healthfully. And when we do that, when we break that rule or eat something we shouldn't eat, we, might have this little pity party where we're just kind of hanging out off the wagon. We're eating whatever, whenever, without a ton of thought, until ultimately the frustration and the pain is enough, and we decide, all right, starting on Monday, and we're back at it. Or that might have been the plan all along, like in her case. She wrote the weekend off as cheat days, and she was already planning on being good and eating healthfully again come Monday. When that happens, with kind of making these plans of eating a certain way at a future date, like Monday, the brain registers that as deprivation. Deprivation is coming, and it creates a sense of panic. Our brain does not differentiate between real, true famine deprivation and self-imposed deprivation. So it triggers various survival mechanisms to fire to make sure your chances of survival are strong given this threat. So even just the mere perception that food might become unavailable can start this process. The body releases various hormones that impact our thoughts, our feelings, and the actions that we take. Most commonly, this looks like a weekend bender of all-out eating craziness of those foods that won't be allowed come Monday, those ones that are usually off limits. You're eating them in quantities that make you feel physically uncomfortably full. You experience intense cravings, like you can't control what or how much you're eating. Your body is like, hurry up, get all of these types of foods in now while you can, because they won't be available in the future. The intuitive eating book explains it as this almost farewell to food party. And I really like that analogy. That's exactly what it used to feel like to me. So the sad thing is these behaviors around food often get misinterpreted as proof of why you need to actively control and restrict food to begin with. Your inner mean girl voice might say, look what happens when you let yourself have these foods. You go nuts. But it's 100% not you. It is not your fault. It is not your lack of willpower for a reason you're acting that way. The trigger for all of that is the threat of future deprivation, restriction. Restriction can be to certain types of foods, like starting Monday, no sugar. It can be to certain amounts of foods, like starting Monday, less carbs. And it can simply be just calling foods good or bad, telling yourself you should or shouldn't eat something, like candy is bad, I shouldn't eat it, or any combination of those things. A second big puzzle piece that can drive that behavior, which is the concept of cheat days. Now, if you're watching this and you have no struggles with food at all, you feel great about your eating habits, you feel empowered and happy and excited, and you do utilize cheat days, keep on doing what you're doing, right? But for lots of people, they cause a whole lot more harm than good. And we are going to dive into why that is. In continuing with the example that we've been using so far, Monday to Friday were the good days of being faithful to, the diet. And then Saturday and Sunday were the cheat days, where the woman I talked to said that she would just go crazy, eating things all day long that she wouldn't allow herself to eat during the week, that she knew wouldn't be allowed to eat again come Monday. So as Sunday night approaches, the fear sometimes picks up even more, right? And so do the cravings and the insatiable hunger and feeling out of control. You might eat or maybe even drink more because tomorrow the reality of rigidity and compliance sets in again. Similar to the Sunday night effect, it is all coming from fear of future deprivation and scarcity rooted in restriction. So it's not your lack of willpower or self-control that is making you feel crazy around these foods. It's that. It's basically paving the way for an on-again, off-again eating habit cycle, always feeling like you're on track or off track, torturing yourself to eat perfectly and controlled all week long, only to feel like you've kind of blown it at the end of it. Because it's not just a couple of not so nutritious things that you're eating in portion sizes that feel good to you. It's lots of those things and in large portions, right? Cheat days are often driving that action of overeating. Another big problem with them is that it perpetuates the labeling of food as good or bad, which can also increase your likelihood of overeating and also feeling guilt and shame around certain foods. Placing food into good and bad categories and cheating with the bad foods because you've been good all week perpetuates the concept of the forbidden fruit effect, or I call it the pedestal effect. The food that you deem as bad and that you shouldn't eat gets put up on this pedestal and becomes irresistible to you. It also comes with the eventual overeating, guilt, and shame when you do finally eat those bad foods, like on a cheat day, rather than actually enjoying them. If you feel the need to cheat on your diet or your way of eating, then your diet or way of eating does not sound very helpful or supportive, right? If you find yourself isolating yourself from fun times with friends and family because they don't fit into your diet or they're the wrong day for your cheat day. If you feel anxious around food because you're afraid that you're going to eat something that you shouldn't, or, if you feel miserable all week because you're depriving yourself, waiting for your cheat day to come so that you can finally splurge and eat the things that you want to do. Instead, try to let go of the rigidity, trying to be so good and perfect all week by restricting yourself from having the tasty foods that you really enjoy. That's just the recipe for struggles and frustration. Instead, focus on making mindful choices in the moment. Rather than restriction, focus on adding. Add into your meals foods and ingredients that nourish your body physically and emotionally. Be sure to eat food that you truly enjoy every single day on purpose with intention and attention. Go from rigid black and white on off, track kind of thinking to embracing the gray area in the middle filled with all kinds of foods. Bring fun and enjoyment back to food. If you want some guided support around this, PM me and we'll set up a free mini session to get started.